Chapter 251. This made Ling Zhenchuan stunned for a moment. After taking the contract from the bed, Ling Zhenchuan was stunned. It really had his signature and seal on it. If David didn't come, the contract would be executed, and he would be the sinner of the entire horrendal, and he might even be arrested. The cold sweat on Ling Zhenchuan's forehead flowed down, and he hurriedly tore the contract to shreds. Panting heavily, Ling Zhenchuan's heart was pounding. What happened today really changed his perception. Little, Mr. Chen, thank you very much. If it weren't for you, the consequences would be unimaginable. You kindly reminded me at noon that I still treat you like that. I'm really ashamed. Ling Zhenchuan followed David with shame on his face. Mayor Ling, you're welcome. This is just for the benefit of the people of Horrendal. David smiled lightly. I really didn't expect that Mr. Chen is so young, but he cares about everyone's blessings. Mr. Chen is really not a mortal. Compared with my unsatisfactory son, hey. Speaking of his son, Ling Zhenchuan sighed heavily. Mayor Ling doesn't have to worry too much, people always change. David comforted Ling Zhenchuan, and then asked, what about these three people? Ling Zhenchuan looked at the two Hong Kong businessmen and Master Bai, and frowned. Although the three of them conspired to control him and get benefits from Horrendal, the other party is an outer harbor identity after all. Mayor Ling, leave the three to me. You go back to rest and don't go out at night for the time being. Your soul is damaged, and something is likely to happen. David saw Ling Zhenchuan's embarrassment, so he said. This time, Ling Zhenchuan didn't say that David was suspicious, and his words were inaccurate. The scene that just happened in front of him still has lingering fears. I know, then there is Mr. Lao Chen. When I have time, I will personally come to the door to thank you. After Ling Zhenchuan finished speaking, he left in a hurry. It seemed that he was very frightened. Mr. Chen, what about these three people? Just throw them into the river to feed the fish. After Ling Zhenchuan left, Lin Tianyu asked David. When they heard that they were going to be fed fish, all three were horrified. Daxian, I beg Daxian to spare my life. The disciple has 50 million here. I am willing to honor Daxian, as long as Daxian can let the disciple go back. Master Bai said with trembling all over. As soon as David heard it, his eyes suddenly lit up. Since these three people have special identities and cannot be killed, it is appropriate to make a slap in the face. Now David is short of money. Seeing that your cultivation is not easy, call 50 million, and hurry up. David said coldly. When Master Bai heard this, he immediately became overjoyed. It doesn't matter how much money you spend, as long as you can survive, you can earn more if you don't have any money. After hurriedly transferring the money to David, he got up and ran away. The remaining two Hong Kong businessmen, one by one, seemed to have caught a life-saving straw, and hurriedly said, we will also give money, and we will also give money. You two are the masterminds, so only 100 million per person can let you go. David saw that the two Hong Kong businessmen didn't look like money-poor owners, so he said. As soon as they heard 100 million, they could let it go. The eyes of the two Hong Kong businessmen lit up. Earnings rushed to transfer the money to David, and then ran away. Seeing two people giving money so happily, David suddenly felt a deep regret in his heart. Lin Tianyu, do you think I'm going to be less? These two guys are so happy. David frowned. It should be less. I heard that these Hong Kong businessmen's assets all started with 100 billion. Damn, you didn't say it sooner. David suddenly exclaimed. But this is the end of the matter, David can't go back and regret it. He picked up more than 200 million in vain, which is not bad. When the money is almost saved, David plans to go to Yadu. Chapter 252. When Ling Zhenchuan returned home, his face was always ugly and extremely pale. Lao Ling, what happened? Look at your ugly face. Seeing Ling Zhenchuan's appearance, Wang Wei asked with concern. Don't ask. Ling Zhenchuan didn't know how to explain it to Wang Wei, so he waved his hand. You keep that Ba 5 tard for me, don't let him step out for me, let me know that he dares to find that David, I'll break his leg. After speaking, Ling Zhenchuan went back to the room. Ling Zhenchuan lying on the bed could not calm down for a long time. Wang Wei was stunned for a while, then walked upstairs. She had to tell Ling Feng well, otherwise Ling Zhenchuan would dare to break his leg. At this time, Ling Feng, who was in the upstairs room, was calling on his cell phone. David broke his wrist, yet he dared to complain. Ling Feng couldn't take this breath. Master Ling, why did you remember to call me? This is not your style. On the other end of the phone, there was a playful voice. Wei Dao, don't be rude to me, now we should work together and agree to the outside world. Ling Feng said with a look of anger. What do you mean? Wei Dao asked. Sonia actually found a man, and he's still a prisoner of labor reform. I'm so mad at me. Ling Feng's teeth rattled. What? Wei Dao raised his voice in an instant. Sonia found a labor prisoner. Is she sick? She chose not to choose the two of us, but chose a labor prisoner. But in Horrendal, there are still people who dare to snatch you from you. Woman. You won't find someone to be him. Don't mention it, that kid has a little bit of work. My wrist was interrupted by him. You know how old-fashioned my dad is, and now he locks me at home and doesn't let me go out for revenge, but I can't swallow this breath, so I just called you. Ling Feng explained. Ha ha ha, young Master Ling, we are rivals in love, why should I help you? When you were in Horrendal, how did you bully me by relying on your identity as the mayor's young master? Wei Dao burst out laughing. Wei Dao, I won't let you help in vain. As long as you do that, kid, Sonia will be yours, and I will never rob you. Besides, if your Wei family wants to build a branch in Horrendal, I will find a way for you. Ling Feng's eyes flickered with cold light. This time he must not let David go, he couldn't even sleep without his breath. Really? Wei Dao was moved. Of course it's true, you can record our call. Ling Feng affirmed. Okay, send me the information about that kid, dare to hit me with Wei Tao's woman's idea, I'll let him live rather than die. Wei Dao hung up the phone after speaking viciously. This Wei Dao is the eldest son of the Wei family in the provincial capital. Along with Sonia and Ling Feng, they are all classmates. When they were in school, they both liked Sonia, but Sonia didn't like these two playboys. After graduation, Ling Feng relied on the advantage of being in the same city as Sonia, and launched a fierce pursuit of Sonia. Wei Dao also visited Horrendal a few times, but the strong dragon was unable to suppress the local snakes, so Ling Feng drove them away. The reason why Ling Feng asked Wei Dao this time was because Ling Zhenchuan could not control the provincial capital, so he would not pay too much attention to the people who came from the provincial capital. If Ling Feng found someone to deal with David in Horrendal, he would be Ling Zhenchuan will know in less than half a day. Moreover, after graduating, Wei Dao has been a soldier for a few years, and his skills are not bad, so he should have no problem dealing with David. Just after hanging up, Wang Wei pushed open the door and walked in. Son, does your hand still hurt? Looking at Ling Feng's wrapped wrist, Wang Wei asked distressedly. Don't worry about it, let me hurt myself to death. I doubt whether I am yours. My wrists were interrupted, and I even apologized to them. I'm so pissed off. When Ling Feng saw Wang Wei, he turned his face aside. Chapter 253. You kid, making trouble all day long, this will make your dad mad. It's still light to interrupt your wrist this time. If you're making trouble, you might be thrown into the river one day. Feed the fish. Wang Wei looked at Ling Feng and said that she hated iron. Just feed the fish, go out, I'm going to sleep. Ling Feng started chasing Wang Wei out. Your dad said, don't let you find that David to take revenge, or you will break your leg. Wang Wei exhorted Ling Feng. Ling Feng immediately became anxious when he heard it. Let him interrupt, don't interrupt my leg, just kill me, I just happen to be free. Ling Feng followed Wang Wei and yelled. Wang Wusheng was afraid that Ling Zhenchuan would hear it, so he hurried away and closed the door tightly. David, I will make you look good. Wang Wei walked back, Ling Feng gritted his teeth and said. Pine Hilltop Villa. The medicinal materials that Lin Tianyu sent to buy have been delivered. David looked at the bags of medicinal materials, his head was a little big, it seemed that he didn't want to sleep tonight, he had to refine it for one night. Fortunately, Barbara and Chen Baoguo were not at home. Ever since Barbara could see things, she hadn't stayed at home. She had been walking outside, looking at the beautiful scenery and the changes in Horrendal. After all, I haven't been able to see things for a few years, but I can suddenly see them. Barbara wants to see everything. After getting the medicinal materials into the bedroom, David locked the door and started to use the alchemy technique to refine the small return pill. After a whole night of hard work, all the medicinal materials were exhausted, and David made a total of 20 small return pills, but David was also exhausted that night. The current David has not yet reached the stage of inedia, so he has not yet reached the point where he can neither eat nor drink nor sleep. I don't know how long I slept, when David was awakened by a loud noise. Looking at the sun outside, it should be almost noon, David got up and walked out of the room, but found that there were many people in the hall, and several children were playing and running around, making the whole room a mess. Hey, David is at home. It's different to live in a big house. I don't have these poor relatives in my eyes. A middle-aged woman in a coquettish dress looked at David and said strangely. Second aunt, when did you come? David was a little surprised to see the middle-aged woman. We've been here a long time ago. I didn't expect you to sleep late in the room, and you didn't even know how to greet us. Second Aunt David rolled her eyes and sat directly on the sofa beside her. David ignored her, but looked at Barbara with a face full of questions. Barbara took David aside and said a little embarrassedly, I called them. I just want them to see, our family also lives in a big house, but I didn't expect so many people to come. And made a mess of the house. How do you explain this to Sonia? Barbara always thought that Sonia lent the big house to David for them to live in, but did not know that it was given to David. Mom, it's all right, let them look at it casually, just find someone to clean up the mess. When David heard this, he hurriedly comforted Barbara. It seems that they won't leave at noon, and they will definitely have to eat. You go to book a restaurant in advance, and don't be too expensive. Barbara said, took out a handful of money from her pocket and gave it to David. Mom, I have money, don't worry about it. David didn't answer. You just started working, where did you get the money? Besides, you can't spend Sonia's money all day long. A big man can't always spend women's money. Barbara gave David the money and left. Seeing a handful of old and new money in his hand, David smiled helplessly, put the money in his pocket, and went out. Chapter 254. David called Lin Tianyu and asked him to pick him up. He happened to give him the refined Xiaohuandan, and then he could just reserve a table at the Tianyuan restaurant. Lin Tianyu arrived soon and took David directly to the pastoral restaurant. In Lin Tianyu's office, David handed him 20 small return pills. There are 20 pills in total here. The price you pay for the medicinal materials is the cost price. I don't care how much you sell and how to sell them. You can handle this matter. If the response is good, we will increase the refining. David followed Lin Tianyu and said, Got it. Lin Tianyu took Xiaohuandan and said, Palace Master, I have prepared the best imperial hall for you here, which will definitely make you more respectable. When David heard this, he immediately shook his head and said, Don't be so good, just an ordinary private room. In the future, the province should spend money, and there are many places where money is needed. Okay. Lin Tianyu nodded again and again. David had no feelings for his second uncle's family, and even said that he was a little disgusted. In the past, David's family was in the countryside. Later, as Chen Baoguo's position gradually improved, David's family also moved from the countryside to the city. Since then, David's second uncle's family has come to the city to find Chen Baoguo. Later, Chen Baoguo helped and arranged David's second uncle to the city, and even found a job for David's second aunt, but with the promotion of David's second uncle's position, he began to look down on David's family. After David was imprisoned, Chen Baoguo lost his job, and David's second uncle's family looked down on their family. This time, Barbara informed David's second uncle's family that he lived in a big house. In fact, he also meant to show off part of it, so that David's second uncle's family could be impressed. At noon, David's parents and his second uncle's family arrived. When David led them into the box, David's second aunt pouted and said, You live in such a cool house, so why don't you bring us here to eat in such a box? You really don't take poor relatives as relatives. Mom, why did you forget? Didn't you just say that the house was borrowed, not theirs? A house is almost 100 million. What are they going to buy? Cousin David glanced at David and said. Giggle, I really forgot, it was borrowed. Second Aunt David giggled. Soon, everyone sat down, leaving only the most marginal place for the David family of 3. And when the master sat there, David's second uncle, Chen Baoqiang, sat there with a flat face, his eyes narrowed slightly, with a look of contempt for everything. Now this Chen Baoqiang is sitting in the position of the director of the office of a certain bureau, and there are many people who flatter him, so he has developed a look of contempt for everything. On Chen Baoqiang's left is David's second aunt, Li Shuzhen. She is dressed in jewelry, and H3R lips are painted like eating a dead mouse. Next to Li Shuzhen is their son Chen Ji. This Chen Ji is only a few months younger than David. Back then when their grandfather named them, they came horizontally and vertically, so one of the two was named David. One is called Chen Ji. However, this Chen Ji is ignorant and inexperienced. He is not married yet. If David hadn't been imprisoned, he would have been married long ago. On the right side of Chen Baoqiang, there is a young man in a suit with arrogance on his face. This person is David's brother-in-law Li Lei. This Li Lei's father is the director of a bureau and Chen Baoqiang's immediate boss. Next to Li Lei is David's cousin Chen Jiayao, who wears various famous brands and has long nails, like a rich wife. David, when did you meet a rich friend? I can live in a house on the top of Pine Mountain and lend it to you generously. This kind of friend is also introduced to the second uncle. I heard from your mother that she is still a woman. Which daughter's daughter? Just to introduce Chen Ji to our family. After they were all seated, Chen Baoqiang asked in an official voice. Chapter 255. Hearing what Chen Baoqiang said, David frowned slightly, and his face instantly turned cold. Baoqiang, come over to have a meal with the family. Why do you mention David's friend? People don't look down on Chen Ji. Seeing that David's face was not very good looking, Chen Baoguo immediately spoke to Chen Baoqiang. Although Chen Baoqiang doesn't look down on David's family, but Chen Baoguo is the eldest brother after all, and Chen Baoqiang does not dare to refute it face to face. Brother, what do you mean? What's wrong with my Chen Ji? No matter what, I'm better than your David, right? At least I have never been in prison, and I'm not a prisoner of reform through labor. Li Shuzhen was not happy when she saw Chen Baoguo talking about her son. Chen Baoqiang was embarrassed to say it, but she, Li Shuzhen, was not afraid of anything. You. Chen Baoguo's face flushed with anger, but he was unable to refute it. After all, David's imprisonment is a fact. Seeing Chen Baoguo being angry, a sneer flashed across Chen Baoqiang's mouth, and then he said, okay, stop arguing, let's serve the food, I have something to do in the afternoon, I don't have time to stay for too long. Baoqiang, look at what you like to eat, just order a few. Barbara handed the menu to Chen Baoqiang. Chen Baoqiang didn't even look at it, he pointed to the menu and said, just this page, I heard that the food in this restaurant tastes good. Barbara was stunned when she heard it. I ordered all the dishes on one page, how much does it cost? Besides, these few people can't eat it. Seeing Barbara stunned, Chen Jiayao covered her mouth and smiled. Auntie, can't you afford it? If you can't afford it, just tell me, it doesn't matter if I come. Barbara blushed and didn't speak. If she really ordered food like this, she really couldn't afford it. It's just the order, I don't have a lot of money. David took the menu, let Barbara sit back, and directly instructed the waiter to fry a page of dishes. Seeing that David really asked the waiter to fry a page of dishes, all Chen Baoqiang's family sneered. Let's talk about it, my sister said please, you won't let me, don't be unable to pay for a while, and ask us to help, then we will not care. Chen Ji glanced at David and said. Don't worry, I'll ask you to pay for this meal. David's face was calm, as if he didn't care about the deliberate taunting of Chen Baoqiang's family. For a while, the box was quiet and no one spoke, just waiting for the food to be served, the atmosphere was very embarrassing. Baoqiang, you just said at home that you should find an official job for David, look. Barbara broke the silence. Finding a job is easy. It's not something I have to say. It's not a long-term solution for David to always work for others. If I find an iron job for him, it will not be enough for a lifetime. Chen Baoqiang said proudly, however, I also hope that my elder brother and elder sister-in-law will not argue with me about the old house at home. I plan to use that place to build a house, and after I retire, I will go to retire. Anyway, you want a homestead, and you have no money to build a house. Barbara looked at Chen Baoguo. Chen Baoguo kept his head down and didn't speak. Barbara nodded and said, if we can find a stable job for David, we won't want the old house. In Barbara's opinion, finding an iron job as a civil servant is much better than giving others a job, and it's also a good thing to talk about it. If her husband hadn't been fired, Chen Baoqiang wouldn't need Chen Baoqiang's job. Seeing Barbara's promise, Chen Baoguo was instantly overjoyed and laughed. Mom, I don't want to be a civil servant. In addition, the old house in the family is as much as our family should share. David hurriedly stopped Barbara and said. David knew that Chen Baoguo wanted the old house not to build a villa at all, but because the place was to be developed. When David went to Ling Zhenchuan's house, he saw a development report. David, what kind of ruin the old house is, it's useless at all, don't worry about it, let your second uncle find you a stable job and live a good life in the future. Barbara glared at David and told him to leave it alone. Chapter 256. Mom, the old house is going to be developed, and it will be very valuable in the future. In fact, David didn't like that kind of money, he just didn't want to make Chen Baoqiang's family cheaper. What? To develop. True or false? When Barbara heard it, she immediately became interested. If that was the case, when the old house was sold, there would be a lot of money. It's true, it's all being planned now. I saw the report at Mayor Ling's house. David said truthfully. David, what do you mean? You mean I want to lie to your place? You have seen the report at Mayor Ling's house, and you are so good at it, why don't you say that you have eaten at Mayor Ling's house? Where's the meal? Chen Baoqiang shouted at David angrily. I really ate at Mayor Ling's house. David nodded. Ha ha ha. When David said this, everyone laughed. Li Lei, who had never spoken, also raised the corner of his mouth at this time. I've seen a lot of bragging, but it's the first time you've bragged like you. Do you know who I am? Say this in front of me. To tell you the truth, Mayor Ling will come here for dinner in a while, and my dad will accompany him. Didn't you say that you ate at Mayor Ling's house? I'll take you to have a toast and see Ling. Does the mayor know who you are? Okay. David nodded without panic. David. Barbara hurriedly pulled David's sleeve. Other jokes can be made. This is a joke with the city's leader. Isn't this courting death? Chen Baoguo's face also turned cold. David, sit down for me. Chen Baoguo also didn't believe that David had eaten at Ling Zhenchuan's house. After all, David was just an ordinary person. It was a fantasy to be able to go to the mayor's house to eat. When Chen Baoguo spoke, David could only sit down. For a time, everyone looked at David with sneer. Sister-in-law, David is just talking nonsense. If it is developed there, can I not know? I think he just doesn't want to find a serious job or live a good life, so he just said this. As a prisoner of labor, he can go to the mayor. Do you want to eat at home? Chen Baoqiang gave David a cold look and continued, Sister-in-law, David's identity, I want to give him half a civil servant. Do you know how much risk I take? But don't worry, I will find him work, but I will not want you in that old house for nothing. I will give you 100,000, enough for you to live for a few years, rent a house by yourself, and you don't need to live in someone else's house. Barbara's eyes lit up when she heard that Chen Baoqiang actually gave back 100,000. You must know that the old house is useless if it is abandoned. It's not bad to realize 100,000 this time. Baoqiang, if you say this, the sister-in-law has nothing to say. Anyway, the old house is deserted. If you want, take it. Barbara said excitedly. Seeing Barbara's promise, Chen Baoqiang's eyes flashed with a hint of joy. The reason why he agreed to come over for a meal this time was because of the old house, which was to be developed. He had already obtained inside information. As long as he got the old house, it would be valuable. Mom. David frowned and shouted at Barbara. Okay, don't worry about it, I will give you the second uncle of the old house. Barbara waved at David and told him to stop talking. Chen Baoguo was smoking a cigarette and didn't speak, and it seemed that he had no opinion. I don't agree, this old house must not be given to them. David roared firmly. He had never yelled at his mother, but this time he would never let Chen Baoqiang succeed. David, what kind of thing are you? You don't agree to have AF. Art. This is the ancestral home of our Chen family. What's the matter with you? You're just a picked wild seed. Chen Baoqiang suddenly slapped the table and cursed at David. Chapter 257. David was stunned for a while, his face turned cold, and the whole person's attitude changed. Like a ghost, he stared at Chen Baoqiang and said, What did you say? Say it again if you have the ability. Looking at David's eyes, Chen Baoqiang was taken aback, but he still reacted and said angrily, You are FCU King Wild Breed, not my Chen family. Wow. Chen Baoqiang, shut up for me. Chen Baoguo suddenly threw the cup, glared at Chen Baoqiang with a flushed face, his body trembled slightly, and said, Tell me one more word, one more word. Seeing Chen Baoguo like that, Chen Baoqiang was so frightened that he hurriedly closed his mouth and sat back again. Although he looks down on Chen Baoguo's family now, but Chen Baoguo is angry, and the eldest brother is still there. At this time, no one was talking in the entire box, and David's galloping killing intent filled the entire box. If the other party was not his second uncle, he would have become a corpse by now. David, your second uncle is confused and talking nonsense, hurry up and sit down. Barbara hurriedly pulled David and let David sit back. Chen Baoguo sighed, lit another cigarette for himself, and smoked one after another. Soon, the dishes came to the table, and there was a large table full of dishes, and even 2 bottles of limited edition Motai wine were served. This time everyone was shocked and looked at each other, because no one had any liquor. How could they have liquor? Waiter, is this liquor wrong? Chen Ji stopped the waiter and asked. No, this was specially ordered by Lord Tiger to send it to this box. The waiter said politely. When they heard that it was sent by Lin Tianyu, everyone was even more confused. Although Chen Baoqiang was a director, Lin Tianyu would not even take a look at this position. How could he send 2 bottles of such precious wine? It's still my uncle who has the face, and even Lord Tiger personally ordered to send 2 bottles of good wine. Li Shuzhen said at this time. When Li Shuzhen said this, everyone's eyes were on Li Lei. Because of the people sitting here, only Li Lei is the one most likely to be related to Lin Tianyu. After all, Li Lei's father is a director, so it's normal to have some friendship with Lin Tianyu. Jordan, I didn't expect you to know Lin Tianyu. These 2 bottles of wine are not cheap. It seems that Lord who has given you a lot of face. Chen Baoqiang also said in surprise. Hee hee, Li Lei laughed dryly. Dad, Mom, that Lin Tianyu and I only had a few meals, but he didn't expect him to know I was here, so he gave me 2 bottles of wine to save face. Brother-in-law, you are so awesome. You even know someone like Lord Tiger. After that, I can walk sideways in Horrendal and see who dares to disrespect me. That Chen Ji was also full of excitement. His brother-in-law knew Lin Tianyu, then no one in Horrendal would dare to bully him. Chen Baoguo and Barbara watched the family chat and laugh, and a trace of envy flashed in their eyes. Only David sat expressionlessly. He knew that this wine was not given to Li Lei by Lin Tianyu, but he did not expose it. He was still thinking about what Chen Baoqiang just said. David couldn't believe it. Did he really pick it up? At this time, he recalled the scene when the Irvin took his hand to give him a pulse in the prison. At that time, the Irvin said that he had dragon blood on his body, and he was definitely not a child of ordinary people. But David knew that his parents were just ordinary people, so he didn't care what Irvin said. But at this moment, David began to have doubts about his life experience, because Chen Baoqiang would not talk nonsense for no reason. David's heart began to be a little chaotic. Chapter 258. Mom and Dad, I'll pour it for you. This wine is not cheap. If it weren't for my Li Lei, there would be no chance to drink this limited edition Motai wine. Chen Jiayao said, opened the bottle and filled Li Shuzhen and Chen Baoqiang. Sister, give me a cup to taste, I've never had one before. Chen Ji hurriedly picked up the wine glass and followed Chen Jiayao with a smile on his face. Let's go, what kind of wine is the child drinking? Chen Jiayao glared at Chen Ji, and then filled Li Lei and herself. Brother-in-law, take care of my sister. Chen Ji looked at Li Lei with help. Ha ha ha, Li Lei smiled. Pour a glass for Xiao Ji, this wine will be gone after drinking, and it will not be possible to produce in the future. Thank you, brother-in-law. When Chen Ji heard this, he happily took the wine bottle and poured it out. All 5 members of Chen Baoqiang's family were filled with motai, but David's family was not poured. Barbara is okay to say, after all, she doesn't drink, and David is also absent-minded at this time. Only Chen Baoguo licked his lips, and his heart was already greedy, but this wine was given to Li Lei. Chen Baoguo wanted to drink it. Seeing Chen Baoguo like that, all Chen Baoqiang's family showed some sneers. Chen Ji, please pour some wine for your uncle. Although this wine was given to your brother-in-law by Lord Tiger, this meal was invited by your uncle, so let others taste it. Li Shuzhen raised her eyebrows at Chen Ji and said something in her words. Got it. Chen Ji picked up the bottle and said to Chen Baoguo, Uncle, I'll pour you some wine. If you don't drink it this time, I'm afraid you won't be able to drink it for the rest of your life. Chen Baoguo originally wanted to not eat the food, but the aroma of the wine was too strong, so Chen Baoguo couldn't hold back and stretched out his glass. Seeing this, Chen Ji raised the corner of his mouth and ordered a few drops of wine in Chen Baoguo's wine glass. This wine is too expensive. Just a few drops will cost thousands of dollars. Uncle, just try it. After Chen Ji finished speaking, he put down the wine bottle. Looking at the poor wine in the wine glass, Chen Baoguo finally opened his mouth and drank it, and even thought about it. As expected of a limited edition motai, the wine is so fragrant. Ha ha ha. Seeing Chen Baoguo like that, everyone laughed. Sit down and look at your unpromising appearance. Dang Hong heroically pulled Chen Baoguo back to his seat. Chen Baoguo is good at everything, but he is a little obsessed with wine, and he takes a few sips almost every day. Come on, let's drink too. Li Lei picked up the wine glass and drank it all in one go. Soon, the bottom of the 2 bottles of wine was reached, and the Chen Baoqiang family was talking and laughing. As for the David family, they were ignored directly. When the phone rang for a while, Li Lei took out his phone and found that it was a message from his father. Jordan, did your father send it? Mayor Ling and the others have arrived. Chen Baoqiang asked hurriedly. Well, it's already here. In the Emperor's Hall, my dad asked us to come over. Li Lei nodded. When Chen Baoqiang heard this, his hands suddenly trembled slightly. It was his honor to be able to sit at a table with the city's leader and drink alcohol. Then don't delay, let's go. Chen Baoqiang raised his wine glass and said anxiously. Dad, I'm going too, I haven't had a drink with such a big leader before. Chen Ji picked up the wine glass and stood up. Where are the children going? Stay here honestly. Chen Baoqiang glared at Chen Ji. He was afraid that Chen Ji would speak out, and he would offend Ling Zhenchuan at that time, which would be troublesome. He knew that there would be ordinary people who could drink with the city's top leaders. Dad, let Chenji follow him. It will be good for the future to see more of the world. Li Lei persuaded Chen Baoqiang. Well, remember, when you get there, don't say anything. Chen Baoqiang exhorted Chenji. Chapter 259. I am coming too. And me, I also want to meet the unselfish Mayor Ling. Li Shuzhen and Chen Jiayao are also clamoring to go together. Okay, let's go together. Li Lei waved his hand. Just when Chen Baoqiang's family was about to go to toast, Li Lei suddenly stopped, looked at David and said, "Didn't you say you ate at Mayor Ling's house? Now we're going to toast Mayor Ling, do you want to go together?" As soon as Li Lei's words came out, Chen Baoqiang's family all looked at David mockingly. They knew that David would definitely not dare to go. If he did, he would be exposed immediately. David shook his head. I want to toast, and he came to toast me. Hearing David's words, everyone was stunned for a moment, followed by a burst of laughter. You haven't woken up from a FCU King dream, right? You said Mayor Ling came to toast you. When I meet Mayor Ling, I will convey your words, and I want to see how Mayor Ling treats you. After Li Lei finished speaking, he took Chen Baoqiang and the others out. Just after walking out of the door, Li Shuzhen stopped and turned around and said, "Let's go to toast, maybe stay and eat together, then you will settle the account, there is no need to wait, those 2 empty wine bottles are all worth it. Hundreds of dollars, don't forget to take it home, enough for your family to eat for a few days." After Li Shuzhen finished speaking, she giggled and left. David, are you confused? How dare you say anything nonsense, isn't this causing trouble? Barbara said to David with a worried look after Chen Baoqiang's family left. Mom, it's all right. David said with a slight smile. Hey. Chen Baoguo sighed at this time. How much does this table cost? What can I do? Dad, don't worry about it, I have a solution. Or you and my mother should go back first, and I will handle the billing. David knew that his parents were here, so he would only be worried, so he might as well let them go home first. All right, I'll go back with your mother to find money, you must remember, don't conflict with others, this is that Tiger Lord's shop, it's not a joke. Chen Baoguo exhorted David. Got it. David nodded. Although Barbara was a little worried, she still followed Chen Baoguo and went to see those old neighbors to see if she could borrow some money, or else eat bawang meal at Lin Tianyu's restaurant, it would be courting death. After his parents left, David sat back again and unconsciously thought of his own life experience. The Chen Baoguo family on the other side took the elevator upstairs with wine glasses and went straight to the Emperor Hall where Ling Zhenchuan and the others were located. Looking at the obviously luxurious private room, Chen Zi's eyes couldn't see it. Brother-in-law, when did you invite us to have a meal in a private room like this? Look at David's nose picking, and he even treats guests in the ordinary private room below. Chen Ji asked Li Lei. It's just the ordinary private room. David's idiot may not have to pay for it. Let's see how he settles the bill later. If he dares to eat the Overlord meal, it is estimated that Tiger Lord will kill him. Chen Jiayao covered her mouth and smiled. Shut up, you two, do you know where this place is? It's all big people who eat. You are so loud and noisy. If you quarrel with big people, it will be troublesome. Li Lei reprimanded the two with a cold face. Chen Ji and Chen Jiayao immediately shut their mouths in fright, and Chen Baoqiang agreed, Jordan is right, you all pay attention to me, talk less, and learn more from your brother-in-law. In the Emperor Hall at this time, Ling Zhenchuan was eating and chatting with several colleagues in the city. Among them was Li Lei's father, Li Weijian. Looking at the order of the seats, Li Weijian should be the one with the lowest status among these people. Whether it's pouring tea or pouring wine, this Li Weijian personally serves, and there is no need for a waiter at all. Chapter 260. At this time, the door of the Emperor's Hall was pushed open, and Lin Tianyu walked in with a bottle of good wine. Everyone was stunned when they saw Lin Tianyu coming in. After all, what Lin Tianyu did, these people knew very well. Ling Zhenchuan is fair and honest, and he didn't like dealing with people like Lin Tianyu at all before. But this time, it was indeed Ling Zhenchuan who spoke in person and invited Lin Tianyu. Mayor Ling, all the leaders came to my shop, today's consumption is all on my shoulders. Lin Tianyu opened the wine with a smile. He has been in the society all the year round, he still understands the principle of hospitality, but he doesn't understand what Ling Zhenchuan suddenly sent someone to find him for. Lin Tianyu, I didn't call you here to invite you, sit down and chat. Ling Zhenchuan waved to Lin Tianyu. Lin Tianyu sat directly next to Ling Zhenchuan, which made the other people all bewildered. No one can understand what happened to Ling Zhenchuan today. Mayor Ling, if you have any orders, just say it. After Lin Tianyu sat down, he said respectfully to Ling Zhenchuan. I came to you for dinner today, and I sent someone to find you. I want to make an appointment with Mr. Chen through you, so I can thank Mr. Chen in person. Ling Zhenchuan said very politely. As soon as Lin Tianyu heard it, he immediately understood what was going on. It turned out that Ling Zhenchuan came here for what happened yesterday. It's a coincidence that Mayor Ling came here. Mr. Chen is here for a treat today, right downstairs. Lin Tianyu said. Really? Ling Zhenchuan's face brightened. Then I'm going to toast Mr. Chen. Ling Zhenchuan said, holding up the wine glass and going out. When the other few people saw Ling Zhenchuan like this, they were all stunned. They really couldn't imagine what kind of big man came to Horrendal, so that Ling Zhenchuan was so respectful, and even went to toast in person. However, Ling Zhenchuan must have a high status when he went to toast. These people also wanted to cling on, so they all picked up their cups and prepared to go together. But just when everyone was about to go toast, the box door was suddenly pushed open, and Chen Baoqiang's family walked in. Seeing several people suddenly intruding in, Ling Zhenchuan was stunned for a moment, frowned slightly and said, "Who are you?" "Mayor Ling, my name is Chen Baoqiang, the director of the Health Bureau office. I know that Mayor Ling is eating here, so I came here to give Mayor Ling a drink." Chen Baoqiang said, pointing to the humanity behind him, "These are my family members, and they all want to see Mayor Ling's demeanor." Chen Baoqiang was nervous, his hand holding the wine glass was shaking slightly. And Chen Ji and Li Shuzhen were all excited, looking at Ling Zhenchuan. Ling Zhenchuan looked angry and looked at Li Weijian. "Old Li, what's going on?" Ling Zhenchuan and the others came here to drink in secret, and no one knew about it at all. After all, Lin Tianyu's reputation was not good. Ling Zhenchuan came to Lin Tianyu to drink, because he was afraid that the impact would not be good, so he called a few people and didn't inform others. And now that Chen Baoqiang's family is here, obviously they got the news in advance. This Li Weijian is the director of the Health Bureau, and Chen Baoqiang is his subordinate, so it must be Li Weijian who leaked the news. Seeing that Ling Zhenchuan was angry, Li Weijian trembled with fright, and glared at his son Li Lei before explaining, "Mayor Ling, I just notified my son and told him that I won't go home for lunch at noon. Now, I came to the Tianyuan restaurant, but I didn't expect him to be here, and he brought people to toast." Li Weijian pushed himself completely. At this time, he didn't dare to take any responsibility, even if it was his own son, he wouldn't take it for him. This was related to his career. "Your son." Ling Zhenchuan frowned. "You wouldn't say that Chen Baoqiang is your son, would you?" Chapter 251.